WWE's WrestleMania 35. How good was it, and what happened? I'm Mason, and this is Wrestling in the Dark, the only wrestling review and recap show brought to you by a blind fan, as far as I know. I am dreading this. It's going to be a lot to keep in store, and I just want to preface the video by saying I'm sorry for any banging that may get picked up in the background, because there's DIY going on somewhere in the block of flats. Don't know if it'll pick it up. Sorry if it does. Let's get right into it then, because it's going to be a long one and it's going to be hard to keep straight. The show kicked off with one of WWE's just their great video packages, hyping up the night, making everyone look great. We got, after America the Beautiful and some sort of helicopter show, we got Alexa Bliss, the host of WrestleMania, coming out. It was short and sweet. She said she could create a WrestleMania moment by snapping her fingers, and she does. Out comes Hulk Hogan, gives a load of Hulk Hoganisms, has a Hulk Hogan moment, and then as he's going up the ramp, I'm like, okay, what match is going to open the show? And Paul Heyman comes out, and I'm like, wow, really? Like, maybe he's just going to hype the match later, but he comes down, he says, if we're not main eventing the show, then we'll open the show so we can get out of here as fast as possible and get back to Las Vegas, where people ultimately appreciate us. It was a really subtle reference, and I'm not really quite sure what it's to. Maybe Brock Lesnar does some other stuff outside the WWE. I'm not really sure. Anyway, yeah, he's like, well, open the show and get it over and done with, and Seth Rollins, get out here. The commentators are like, oh no, Seth's had no time to prepare, he's had no time to warm up, this is going to be really bad for him. And the production team were magically, awesomely on point, with Seth's special entrance queued up already somehow. Considering that they weren't prepared, that was some really hard work, getting it done instantly. Anyway, as Rollins is coming out, Brock just won't wait, and he runs up the ramp to meet him, starts laying a beat down on him. He throws him into the LED boards. Brock really likes Germany, by the way. I've never really thought about it before, but he uses the German suplexes, and now here he just starts throwing Rollins around by the German announce table and attempting to put him through it. He's beating him down. They get in the ring. Heyman's calling for the bell. The ref is checking on Seth, and I actually quite liked the ref's performance there. He actually seemed like he was quite concerned for Seth, and he's like, no, come on, Brock, back off, let me do my job. I actually quite liked that. It was a nice touch. Rollins took a spill back to the outside. There was a bit more beat down, and then eventually the match started, and I was a little bit annoyed as it started, because I was like, are they not, when this sort of situation happens, are they not supposed to do the thing where they check if they can stand before they ring the bell? And if they actually did do that with Seth, the commentators didn't really mention it or put it over, so it just basically didn't happen for me, and that just annoyed me just that little bit, because I think doing the can you stand up, and like Rollins struggling to get up and then eventually like straightening up and being like, come on, would have been really awesome. We had the standard suplex city spots. He was throwing Rollins around the ring, and then eventually it all ended fairly quickly. Rollins low-blowed Brock Lesnar, and then he hit a stomp. Lesnar no-sold the first stomp, sort of no-sold the second stomp, and the third one put him down for the loss, and Seth Rollins picked up the Universal Championship. I initially was like, really? He has to go low to beat Lesnar? But it's not a problem. I know that some people are like, yeah, but he's supposed to be a face. It's still a face move. It's sort of equal, really. Lesnar demanded that he get out there with no time to prepare, and then jumped him and tried his best to, make sure that he could pick up the easy, cheap victory. So for me, I wanted Rollins to have the championship. I wanted it to be off Lesnar, and that goal was achieved. I thought that they'd have more of a match than this, but I don't really care. Honestly, it's just got to the point where I'm like, yeah, I'm just glad Rollins has got the championship. I don't really care whether it was a good or bad or middling match. I'm just glad of the result and that we can finally move on from this whole Brock Lesnar thing. But sadly, I don't think he'll be out of the picture straight away because of the low blow. But you can't win them all. This was sort of standard, about as expected. Still delivered quite well. Tightly told story. Cole did a really good job of calling the action and letting me know what was going on. So it was all tightly done. Nice kick off to the show. The crowd was like going crazy by the third stomp, so it was a nice way to open up the show and the result that I wanted. So we haven't really got too many complaints, and I'll give it a 4 out of 6. Next up, in a good old-fashioned grudge match, we got AJ Styles versus Randy Orton, and I really wouldn't have expected this match to have ended up being as good as it was. I actually quite enjoyed it. Probably won't get many people agreeing with me, but other than Kofi, this was sort of one of my matches of the night, really. I really enjoyed it. It was a good old-fashioned face versus heel, WWE versus indie style. Randy was working good old-fashioned heel in this. It was really good to see. There was an extra man in the booth, Jerry the King Lawler, and as he come out, I was like, is there any real need for Lawler? And the answer is no. There really, really wasn't any need for Lawler. I started watching around WrestleMania 28, and I just don't have that emotional connection to Lawler that most people have who watched as a kid, and it's just, he annoys me and he doesn't add anything. There was multiple times in this match that he was just useless. As Randy comes out, he's talking about, he tries to deny that being a third generation wrestler wouldn't help Orton. He says that his dad didn't even like him that much and didn't help him, and everything Randy's done, he's done on his own. A little bit later on in the match, Tom Phillips says, okay, so what about all of the groups that he's been a part of? Do you think that's helped him at all? And Lawler just either wasn't listening or didn't understand, because he just repeated what he said about his father before, and that was just like, you could even tell Phillips was like, yeah, I was talking about Evolution and Rated RKO and all that sort of thing. And then after that, Lawler just didn't even say anything. So getting to the actual match, started off a little bit slow towards the beginning of the match. AJ was throwing some big, loud sounding elbows. They were going backwards and forwards. Eventually, Randy managed to get a thumb to the eye. Good classic heel move. This allowed him to take the advantage, and he was grounding AJ, trying to just ground him with that good old-fashioned heel offense, keeping the match slow, keeping him grounded. AJ kept trying to pick up the pace each time. He'd just eat, a power slam or a knee to the back of the neck or a stomp, and just every time AJ tried to lock in the calf crusher, he was just completely countering him with just nasty offense that was put Randy really in that heel territory for me. And I was like, as the match was going on, I was really getting more and more behind AJ. At some point, Randy went for the draping DDT, and AJ countered, trying to go for the calf crusher. There was some really cool spots in this match, really. There was an RKO attempt that AJ managed to counter with a phenomenal forearm, then a 450 splash with a really nice near fall. Randy hit a superplex after a while. There was a lot of cool spots in this match. Towards the end, it was really, really picking up. At one point, Randy was looking for the second superplex off the ropes, or it looked like he was, but he was actually trying for a top rope RKO, and AJ countered with a Pele kick, and that was a really nice spot. The crowd exploded at one point as Randy hit an uppercut on AJ, and he fell out to the apron. And then in the closing moments of the match, they went to the outside. We got a phenomenal forearm on the outside, a phenomenal forearm in the inside, and AJ picks up the win. I didn't mention every spot in this match. I didn't even mention every spot that I had written down. I think I've given you a good set of examples for why this was a good match. There was looking for the RKO and AJ countering with just his striking, his quick offense, and it was all really well done. They both got a good near fall each, and in the end, the right person picked up the win. And I really did enjoy this match. I can't believe how much I did, considering Lawler was on commentary, and it's Randy Orton who is on and off for me in terms of quality and how much I enjoy him. AJ Styles I tend to enjoy most of the time, but he's one of those people that, thanks to his booking, just disappears off my radar for every now and again. But this was a really, really decent match that was better than I expected. And like I said, other than the Kofi match, ended up being my match of one of my matches of the night, and I gave it a 5 out of 6. Next up, it's the WWE SmackDown Live Tag Team Championship match with the Usos defending against Nakamura and Rusev, The Bar, and Black Magic, Ricochet and Aleister Black. There was parts of this match that I liked, there was parts of this match that I didn't like. In-ring action was good and I'm sure was really, really fun to watch, but the commentary didn't do a great job with it. It was sort of disappointing, to be honest, because I've been really in on the Black Magic team. I just really enjoyed them because of the takeover match. I was really looking forward to this one, and it was just a little bit disappointing at points, especially one point. So the things that I did like, Aleister Black hitting a big knee on Rusev and then a springboard moonsault for the near fall. Ricochet hitting a shooting star press to break up a near fall. That one was cool. There was a huge spot where Cesaro swung Ricochet around for a really long time while Sheamus delivered those clubbing beats to the chest on every other competitor in the match. Ricochet got locked in the sharpshooter and sold it really well audibly. He sounded completely in pain, and it sold it really well. There was a huge Tower of Doom spot sort of thing, I am assuming. They said that there was a lot of competitors lined up along the ropes, and then there was some huge reacting. They said that Ricochet rolled through, but they never really said what the spot was, and it really took me out of the match because I was annoyed that they weren't going to tell me what it was. The closing moments of this match were really cool. Aleister Black hit a Black Mass on Rusev. Nakamura came and hit a Kinshasa. Then Sheamus hit the Bro Kick, and then the Usos came and they laid him out with some super kicks, hit the double loose, and retained. Like I said, there was some really cool parts in this, and I really did get into it. The crowd was electric for it, but the commentary really did let this match down a little bit, and it's a shame because there was some nice calls. They were putting over Aleister Black and Ricochet for fighting for 3 championships in a week. They were putting over the Usos for being the only team to ever walk in as tag champs to WrestleMania 3 years in a row. The Bar, their reputation speaks for itself, and Nakamura and Rusev, they've got a shelf life, but they're good for now. And that's all I really have to say about this match. It was good, and I'm sure that it was really good to watch in the ring, but I really can't give it too high of a mark just because of that huge ball being dropped, and it gets a strong 4. I would like to give it a 5, and if they'd have called that spot, it'd have definitely been a 5 out of 6 match, but the way it was, I've got to give it a 4 out of 6. Next up, it's Shane McMahon versus The Miz in a Falls Count Anywhere match. This was a good old-fashioned, brawly Falls Count Anywhere match. It was just like one of those ones that you'd do on the game, and there was another match like this later on in the night that I'm sure you all know what I'm on about, but this was just one of those matches that you have on a video game there was all sorts of things going on, but it also had a really decent story. Miz has been heel for so long, and he's been slowly getting more and more in the favour of the fans over the years, and it's great that he's finally got to a point where he can be face, but not, he's still the Miz. He's still, the promos that he's cutting, the way that he's delivering them, they're all still the Miz, but he's just doing good things now, and it's really cool, because in a way it all properly started with when he had, when Maurice had the baby. They started the dad storyline, and it was really a really effective way, I think, of beginning that ball rolling to turning him face, and this whole Shane thing has worked really well with it. The video package before was really good, made Miz look like an absolute hero, and it was just a great video package, just one of those classic WWE ones. And obviously it was that little bit better because it was a Shane McMahon match. They're obviously going to put the effort in there, which actually in kayfabe, if you think about it, is like quite funny, because Shane would definitely, his character would definitely have gone to the production truck and been like, you better make sure that my match has the best video package. So this was just a tightly told story of The Miz being a little bit too emotional, a little bit too hot-headed. He was going after Shane early in the match, and Shane used Miz's dad to rile up The Miz and gain the upper hand that way. He beat him down for quite a while, hit him in the face with a TV monitor, and he had some more evil plans, but Miz's dad wouldn't let it happen. He was squaring up to him in the ring, going up ready for a fight, and Shane didn't do anything for a while until he did. He went to attack Miz's dad, and then Miz came back in, started really taking it to Shane. Then at that point it was all mostly Miz from that point on. He threw Shane into the barricade and laid him out for a while. He made the medics check on his dad, and before he went to carry on the beatdown with Shane. I really like that. It's like it's proper an acting sort of spot. That it's one of those things that you can imagine it in like a TV show where someone's been attacked and all the police and the paramedics are around him, and they're like, "Is he okay? Is he okay?" And they're like, "Yeah, he's fine." And then that's when they once they've checked that they're okay, they go off after the bad guy and go take him out. And that's exactly what Miz did. They brawled the way up the ramp. Miz was going to go for a Skull Crush finale on the stage, but Shane countered with some nice kidney punches and a DDT for a nice near fall. He hurt his knee, and after that the tide really did turn in Miz's favour. They fought into the international announce area, which was really funny because you could hear all the different languages all at once, just jabbering away and going crazy, and it was really funny, and it made me think, I wonder how good those commentators are. I wonder how good the calling is, and etc. I wish I could speak more languages so I could actually watch one of the foreign feeds and see how good their commentators are. Miz got Shane through a table. He did a move to Shane onto the roof of a golf cart. They fought into the technical area where Shane kicked out of a skull crushing finale, and he fled up a camera rig, which was, as soon as he started, it's like, oh, this is the big Shane McMahon spot then. This is what he's going to do. And Miz gave chase up the camera rig. When Shane got to the top and had nowhere to go, he started grovelling. Miz showed no mercy though, and he hit a huge superplex off the camera rig. But as everyone was chanting, holy shit, the ref went down for the count and counted the win, but Shane won because, as Corey pointed out, which was a really nice call, the way that you cradle the head for a suplex means that your opponent's shoulders would actually land on top of yours, and that is what happened. Shane picked up the win. The crowd went sort of dead for it, but I quite liked it. I know that people thought that Miz should win, but he really got the moral victory. Yeah, it goes down in the history books that Shane won, but Miz really got the moral victory in this match, and it made him look really, really good. Just like this avenging, strong face character that I can really, really get behind, and I can't wait to see him go up against just other people Who would have thought that at some point we could get a match with The Miz as face and Daniel Bryan as heel? Who'd have ever thought that? But now I'm like, I want to see that. I want to see Daniel Bryan as heel, Miz as face in a continuation and reversal of their feud. I think it'd be really, really good. This was a pretty solid match, tightly told story, nice in-ring action, big spots, just a nice crazy Falls Count Anywhere match that you couldn't really ask for much more from. 5 out of 6. That was what I thought of it. Next up is the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship match, and I hate to be that guy, but this was one of my least favourite matches of the night. Sasha Banks and Bayley, the Boss and Hug Connection, I promised myself I'd never say it, defend against the Iconics, Samoan Slaughterhouse, Tamina and Nia, and the Divas of Doom, Natalya and Beth Phoenix. This just never really got started for me. There was lots of tagging in and out. I just lost track of who was doing what. Paige came out as the special guest commentator, and she didn't really seem to be all that into it, especially kayfabe-wise. Like, she was talking a lot about being Nia's friend. At one point, she even said Nia was nervous. Like, Renee said, did you get a chance to speak to Nia about this match? And Paige said, oh yeah, she was nervous, but really looking forward to it. And I was like, kayfabe, Paige. Kayfabe. It was just sort of frustrating to listen to. Cole was doing his best to call the match, call the action, but there just wasn't a lot of action. There was never really any big spots that drew me into it. Nia teased hitting the Superfly splash at some point, but she didn't end up doing it. There was a double sharpshooter spot at some point on Sasha and Bayley. And other than that, those are loads of the things that stood out to me about this match. It just never really... There was no story. There was no big crazy spots. There was nothing really to draw my attention in. And after the last couple of matches that were, were pretty good and fast-paced and interesting with the story, it just lost my attention. And in the end, Beth Phoenix hit a top rope glam slam on Bayley, and she was going to pick up the win, but the Iconics stole it away from her, and they picked up the Tag Team Championships, which I am glad for. I don't like Sasha and Bayley that much as a team. I wish that they would be separate. It's good to have the Tag Team Championships on a real tag team, the same way as the Usos retaining was the right decision, because they were the only real tag team that's real established actual tag team, and the Iconics are the same way in this, in my opinion. So it was the right decision. They're going to be annoying as hell over the next couple of weeks or months or however long they hold it. It's going to be a frustrating reign, because the Iconics are annoying as hell, but they're supposed to be, so they do the job well. Yeah, it never really got started. Didn't keep my attention. I gave it a 3 out of 6. Because it wasn't bad, it just wasn't interesting. Next up, it's the WWE Championship match. Daniel Bryan defends against Kofi Kingston. This was the match of the night. Hands down, without a doubt, it was the most emotionally engaging, the high point of the night, and it could have ended at the end of this, and it would have been like, that was a really good WrestleMania, other than the previous match. It was just a fantastic match. The video package at the start really summed up the whole story, made it look like Kofi's really had to work over the last few months, really had to fight and claw, and like he really deserves it. It painted Bryan as this awesome, fantastic heel, that hypocrite that's now calling people B+, trying to keep people down. This was brilliant. If you'd have told me a year ago, just like a year ago, that Daniel Bryan would be the best heel in the company, and he'd be going against Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship, and every single person in the crowd would want Kofi to win, I just wouldn't have believed you. But the way that they've worked this story, the way that it's all panned out, just was perfect. This match was bonkers, and just had all the things that I like about wrestling in it. So let's try and get to some of the in-ring action. Bryan was just trying to keep Kofi grounded at the beginning of this match, and it was a technical display as he was just trying to lock in those submissions, grind Kofi down, wear him down. It was really cool because Kofi just kept trying to fire up and kept trying to get out of the submissions, but every time he'd try and get out of it, Bryan had just hit some leg sweep or some transition to get him back in, or go for the pin and get the upper hand again from there. And it was really, really interesting because it was just like, I love technical wrestling, and I love that Bryan was using it in a really dastardly way, a really smart way, and a way that really was trying to neutralize Kofi Kingston's athletic ability, which is really interesting considering the style of offense that we've all used to love from Daniel Bryan. There's some really nice spots in this match. Bryan was going for like the knee in the back at one point. That was really cool. He kept going for the single leg Boston Crab. The Boston Crab. That was a terrible slip up. No, he went for the single legged Boston Crab every time Kofi tried to go for the Trouble in Paradise. And that was really cool. Really good psychology. He just kept going for it, picking him out of the air, and Kofi just couldn't get anything in on him for a good long while. He tried to launch himself at Bryan on the outside, but took a nasty spill and hit his gut area on the announce table, and the commentators were selling it like it should just be over there, made it sound like it was a really, really brutal spill. Bryan was trying to take Kofi to the top rope at some point. Kofi was fighting out of it, and each blow that he'd hit on Bryan, the crowd was chanting yes along with it, and I loved that. It was beautiful symmetry. Bryan was hitting his what used to be the Bryan yes kicks, and that was really cool because the crowd was chanting no each time. They've really turned on him, and that's interesting really, because he says that the crowd's fickle, and they've sort of proved his point by like turning the S chant on him, and I like that. That's a good thing, because it who doesn't hate being called a hypocrite or fickle or something, and then it being proved right, you know? And we are all fickle, turning on him as quickly as we have, and I just really liked that. At one point, Kofi went for a big move on Bryan, got a really convincing near fall, and the crowd went absolutely crazy. He went for a crossbody at some point and got picked out of the air into the lapel lock, and the crowd went crazy once he got to the ropes. That was really good. I love submission drama, always have done, always will do. You will never get me more invested in a match than when you do a good submission willy won't he tap sort of thing, especially in this sort of match where it's like, no Kofi, don't you dare tap, don't tap. And it was just such an enjoyable match. Like I said, it was by far and away the best match on the show, with Big E and Xavier at ringside pumping up Kofi, just really serious sounding. There was never any jubilant celebration by them. They were just, Big E was just like, you've got to move, Kofi, you've got to move, and always trying to fire him up. At one point, Bryan went for the running knee. Kofi caught him with the SOS and went for the near fall from that, but Bryan countered into the lapel lock, and that was really cool. He was just taunting Big E and Xavier the whole time, smashing Kofi's face into the mat and just laying brutal offense into him, laying the lapel lock in quite a few times. Kofi would kick his way out of it, and etc. Towards the end of the match, Xavier tried to get involved, and Rowan stopped him and laid both New Day members out at ringside. Kofi got out, hit Trouble on Paradise on Rowan. He didn't go down. Him and Xavier hit the Midnight Hour on Rowan. And then after that, as Bryan and Kofi were fighting back into the ring, Kofi hit a Trouble in Paradise after a huge yes chant, and he picked up the win, and it was an absolutely fantastic moment. Everyone swarmed the ring. Big E and Xavier were celebrating with him. The crowd was going absolutely wild. And best of all, who'd have thought I'd have said it, Byron Saxton just going absolutely crazy with just pure joy at Kofi winning. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful way of all this going down. It really put over Kofi strong. It put over the Trouble in Paradise strong, because he was just looking for it, didn't hit, and when he eventually did, that's when he picked up the win. So that put over the Trouble in Paradise really strong. He looks great coming out of it. Bryan doesn't really look any worse. It could have been either guy's match, really. If either guy had just hit that bigger move, that one more devastating move, it could have been either guy's match. So they both come out looking really, really good, and I just love this. More than anything on the card, you have to watch this match. This might end up being controversial, but I could have seen this match on a takeover. Maybe not quite, but I would enjoy this if it was a takeover match. There was some really decent wrestling, really decent in-ring action, good storytelling, good payoff, great commentary. It just was all perfect, and I can't think of a way that they could have done it better for me, because there was no shenanigans for the most part, other than that end bit. There was just it was a clean win for Kofi, and it all just panned out exactly the way that I wanted it to, and I gave it a 6 out of 6, and it was my match of the night by far. Okay, let's skim through the next part of the show here, because this next section wasn't my favourite part of the show. After a little backstage segment with Alexa Bliss and the SNL guys, which I'm not going to go into because it was absolutely pointless, we got another pointless match, which was the United States Championship match, Samoa Joe defending against Rey Mysterio. This match was completely pointless. They should have just left it for SmackDown. I understand that they feel like they have to have all the titles defended, but it wasn't a good idea. It just was a waste of time. This match was literally, Joe goes after Ray sends him into the ropes for the 619, hits the 619, goes up to the top for a frog splash, goes for it, but Joe catches him into the Coquina clutch, and that's it. That was the end of the match. There was no Dominic involvement, there was no swerve, there was no match. This was a 1 out of 6. I hated it. It was a waste of time. They should have just scrapped it and given the next match a little bit more time. So, the next match was another grudge match. It was Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns in his in-ring return after, well, not the in-ring return, but his WrestleMania return after leukemia. And this match was another match that never really got started for me, which is a real disappointment, because I really, really like Drew. I've always quite liked Roman. I never really got the hatred for him. I find him boring sometimes, but that's just, I find most wrestlers boring for this period and that period. There's not many wrestlers that I've been into consistently for years and years and years. So I was really disappointed, because this match could have been so much more. It was just early moments. Drew talked a lot of trash. He dominated Roman for a little bit, trying to keep him grounded with that just, grinding down offense. Probably just boring to watch, to be honest, because it was boring to listen to. Roman went for the drive-by at some point, and Drew moved and he landed on the apron, which Drew capitalised on, hit a suplex on the outside. There was a little bit more, a few more spots before Drew hit the Alabama Slam off the top rope on Roman. And it was a near fall, but I never really bought into it. It just wasn't convincing. It was too early in the match, and there was no way they were ending it that way. But it was pretty much not long after that the tide turned. Drew was talking a lot of trash. Roman tried to fire back with a few rights. Drew slapped him. That actually fired Roman up. They fought around, and then Drew hit Drew got hit with the Samoan drop on the outside, and it was all just Roman from there. Once they got back into the ring, Roman went for the Superman punch. Drew countered with a headlock, a headbutt. Imagine if he countered with a headlock. That'd be. I mean, obviously I know that'd be a decent counter for some people, but Drew McIntyre just countering with a headlock. Roman went for the Superman punch. Drew countered with the headbutt, got hit with the Superman punch anyway, and a single spear, and then went down for the loss. And that it just frustrates me. I have no problem with Roman himself. I don't know why they just didn't give them more time, give them a few more decent spots. Look, Brock Lesnar's on his way out, guys. He's not going to be around forever, you know? You need some more monster heels. Start booking Drew the right way. This should have been a Brock Lesnar Roman Reigns match, as much as everyone would deny that they would enjoy that. This just should have been that type of match. Roman should have just been on the offense the whole time, hitting Drew with this and that and the other and the other and the other, and just Drew not going down, and then eventually after the 6th spear go down, not the first one, because he needs to look more dominant than that. This it never really got started for me. Again, wasn't particularly bad, wasn't particularly engaging, gave it a 3 out of 6. After that, though, we got an Elias segment. There was some sort of joke going on with Elias talking to himself, some sort of musical joke. Eventually, I just sort of lost attention until John Cena came out. And even then, Cena came out with the basic Thugonomics theme and came out with the Thugonomics character and laid down some mildly funny rap lines that were also just a little bit awkward. I don't know. John Cena's just moved past that now. I never saw that version of John Cena anyway. I don't have the emotional attachment to it. And it was just, at this point, I was like, especially just in that long run of a Bliss segment, and then the Joe match, and then the Roman and Drew match, and just by the time this lengthy segment was over, I was like, oh my god, when is this over? The Roman and Drew match got a 3 out of 6, and if I was gonna rate the Elias segment, I'd give it a 2 or maybe even a 1, because it really was frustrating. There was, as I said, whatever Elias's joke was, it was visual, and I just didn't get it, and because of that, I just completely lost it for that segment. Triple H and Batista up next, and this match was mixed feelings. I've got mixed feelings. It was slow in parts, it was plodding, but it was a decently told story. H was just really, really mad about Batista beating up Flair, and he just wanted some revenge for it, and that's basically what he went for in this match. Batista made his way down to ringside and eyeballed special guest commentator Shawn Michaels, which was it was that. I was never a fan back in the day, so I don't have that emotional connection to, this sort of evolution, just the Batista Triple H sort of thing, and it just it didn't let me get as invested as I could have. But Triple H had a special entrance, obviously, and also, obviously, the commentator said nothing during it, so it was just engine noise. And then Michael Cole goes, "How cool was that?" "I don't know, Cole. What happened? Tell me." I just hate those special entrances, because I just hate that they never tell you what it was. They just could. They don't have to talk over it. They can tell you at the end. They should still explain it. And it was frustrating. But other than that, the match itself, again, slow at times, a bit plodding, but it was one of those matches that you just have on the video game with your friend, where you're like, come on, let's just see what cool spots we can do. It really, really was. There was just... Triple H was going after Batista with a chain in the early moments. He was attacking his fingers with like a toolbox. He got some pliers. He was attacking his fingers with them, trying to break them. He ripped out Batista's nose ring. He was just being really, really sadistic and really, really enjoying it. Corey was like, "That's my boss!" at one point, just completely horrified at what was going on after the after the nose ring incident. They've found their little niche, haven't they, with with piercings, etc. You had Randy Orton putting the screwdriver through Jeff Hardy's stretcher early last year or late last year, whatever it was, and now Trips rips out the nose ring out of Batista's nose, and you could tell everyone was just horrified about it. And it was brilliant. I'm trying to just gather my thoughts here. Batista tried to put H through the announce table with a Batista bomb, but Trips countered with a backdrop onto the table that didn't break. He then speared Batista through the table instead. He got back in the ring, he got Sledgy out, and he tried to hit Batista with the sledgehammer, but a spear. They then introduced the steel steps into the equation, and eventually Triple H took advantage of that. He hit a spine buster on the steps, which again, that's that point. Let's just see what we can do, Dave. Do you think you can powerbomb me on the steps? Do you think we can do a top rope move onto the steps? All that sort of crazy things where you're just trying to see how cool you can make it. That's just the match that these guys were having. Again, Trips tries to go Batista with the sledgehammer again, but Batista hits the DDT on the steel steps, and after that he's just sort of got the upper hand, but Ric Flair runs down, distracts him, gets another sledgehammer to Triple H. Triple H hits Batista with the sledgehammer, and then the pedigree, and that was pretty much it. That was all there was to it. It was, again, like I said, it was slow paced, but there was actually some pretty cool spots in there. I couldn't have expected much more from them. I didn't expect it to be a great match anyway. It was more interesting than most of the stuff in the previous segment. I definitely would have preferred to watch this than the Roman Drew match, because there was nothing really to the Roman Drew match, whereas there was at least like the nose ring spot and the pliers and the chain and spearing through the table and power bombs and pedigrees on the steel steps. There was a plethora of spots, and so, like I said, I would actually rather watch this than the Roman and Drew match, which is such a shame, because I shouldn't be saying that when you've got Roman and Drew, who are like future of the company. They should be huge stars, and I'm more interested in, Triple H and Batista, who I never really got to see in his original run. I also wasn't watching particularly regularly when he came back last time, so I've never had that investment in Batista, and it's like I say, it's a shame that I was more interested in this than the Roman and Drew one. I got a 4 out of 6 though, because it was just basically as expected, a nice hardcore, no holds barred match, Attitude Era style, I guess. And next up, it's Kurt Angle's retirement match against Baron Corbin. Everyone was expecting a swerve. There was no swerve. That was the match. It was Baron Corbin versus Kurt Angle. It wasn't particularly great, wasn't particularly special. Maybe it would have been if I'd have had more of an emotional investment with Kurt, but as it was, at least this did wrap up the Corbin Angle story from last year. It was just a sort of slow-paced, plodding match like the first one, but it did pick up in points. Corbin took it to Angle in the early moments, but he started taunting Angle's family, and Angle fired back with some German suplexes, and eventually hit the Angle slam, which Corbin kicked out of. He got Corbin into the ankle lock, and Cole said, "Imagine how humiliating it'd be to lose to Kurt Angle now after all the trash that he's talked." And I just thought, not really that embarrassing, because it's Kurt Angle. I don't know. I didn't like that call too much. It just seemed like it just buried Kurt a little bit, but as he gets Corbin in the ankle lock, eventually Corbin counters and hits Angle with the deep 6 that he kicks out of. And other than that, we got some running wild with German suplex, and Angle went for the moonsault and missed, got hit with the end of days, and that was that. That was just the entirety of the match. It was good. It was good that Corbin won. He's got that accolade under his belt now. He beat Kurt Angle in his final match. It gets a good amount of heat on him. All I can say is, last time we had something like this, when we had Undertaker's streak getting beaten by Brock Lesnar, I know that lots of people will argue that Lesnar was the right person. I don't think it was. I think it should have been someone that was going to stick around more, that they could have utilised it with more. And at least they didn't make that same mistake. It was just because this could have been Cena, and then no one gets the rub. And I know that people would argue that that there is no rub there because Angle can't go anymore, but I still think that he can say he beat Kurt Angle in his final match, and that's a good accolade to have. And I don't really know how to grade this. At the end, Kurt had a standing ovation, and then he said that he wanted to walk out hearing the two words that epitomised his career, and he walked off up the ramp with his family, getting chanted, "You suck" at him, which is, how brilliant is that relationship that he's... Oh, pardon me. How crazy is that connection that he has with the crowd? The fact that they can all chant "You suck" at him, but really they just mean "We love you," and that's just brilliant, because there's no one else really with that sort of connection. I feel bad giving this any more than a 3 out of 6, and I'm tempted to give it a 2 because I didn't really see any value in it. But was it any worse than the Roman and Drew match? Was it any worse than well, it definitely wasn't worse than the United States Championship match, and I don't think it was that much worse than the women's tag match either, so I'll give it a 3 out of 6. The WWE Intercontinental Championship match was up next. Bobby Lashley defends against the Demon Finn Balor, and we got that Finn Balor entrance that doesn't really work for me when you can't... It's all about the visuals, otherwise it's just a load of noises, and I hate to be that guy. It's fine for everyone else. I'm glad that he does it because it must be such a spectacle for people that can see, but it doesn't really do anything for me, and I'm not sure how I feel about the Demon character these days, because I just feel like it's a bit of a crutch that buries Finn Balor, the man, a little bit. This match it had nothing to offer me. It didn't tickle any of my bones at all. It was pretty simple action. Balor was coming out with his strong offense, using a little bit different offense than he usually uses in his matches. He hit a spin kick, and to start the match, Lashley ended up turning the tide with some suplexes. He drove Finn into the apron. He hit a pair of spears that the commentators went crazy for, and in the end, Balor hit a powerbomb, which Corey sold as he was like, how has he found the strength to do that? Finn Balor, the man, could never do that. And that's really annoying, because it's like, no, he clearly has the strength to pick up Lashley and powerbomb him. So why sell it like it's this different character? I get having the mystique there and that sort of thing, but I don't think it's for me. I like just normal people, I guess, people who are good at what they do, and it was just really, really frustrating to me. Yeah, he hit the power bomb and then hit the coup de grace, and he picked up the win. The only really saving grace for this was that he picked up the Intercontinental Championship again. At least there's that. It's now on Finn Balor rather than Bobby Lashley, and hopefully that one is the end of that one, but it probably won't be. I don't have faith in them to end this. It was a 2 out of 6 match. I really didn't enjoy it. I had to sit through the Demon entrance and then the boring match, and it just killed it for me. I couldn't wait for the main event. Like I said, it was a 2 out of 6. And finally, it's the main event of the night. It's the winner takes all Raw and SmackDown Women's Championship match with Ronda Rousey, the Raw Women's Champion, Charlotte Flair, the SmackDown Women's Champion, defending against each other, and Becky Lynch fighting for everything. This was a really decent match. It was about as good as I expected, if not a little bit more. I don't know what I was expecting from it, to be honest. I really wasn't. I thought that it was just going to be different, I guess, but it surprised me. The video package at the beginning looked really good. It made all three women look really strong, recapped the story, got me pumped for it. Then we got a helicopter entrance for Charlotte, which was a little bit confusing at first. Again, I wish that they'd just mention it, just tell you what's going on. Ronda Rousey got a special entrance with Joan Jett singing her entrance theme, which, oh god, did Joan Jett not sound convicted to that song. I really didn't enjoy it. I love that both women got a special entrance here, Charlotte and Ronda, and then Becky got pretty much nothing, and that is pretty awesome because that makes sense. Becky isn't this flashy sort of woman, and it worked really well. There was just a plethora of action in this, and the great thing is that the story tended to be about either two women working together to get the other one out of the situation, or someone hitting double moves on each of the women and trying to go for the cover with each one. We got Charlotte hitting a moonsault that Becky caught into a disarmer. That was really nice. We got a Charlotte Spanish fly on Becky that Becky kicked out of it too. That was a really near fall, and the commentators went absolutely crazy for it. We got Ronda locking in the double armbar on both women. They worked together to lift her up and slam her down, but she didn't quite let go, so they lifted her up and they slammed her down again. That was a really nice spot. I like that they actually came together. Even though they hate each other, they came together to try and take out Rousey. Becky gets Rousey in the disarmer at some point, and I like that Ronda sold it nice and audibly. I don't know, considering that in kayfabe she said that it was a fake-ass looking nonsensical armbar. I like that once Becky got her in it, it was nice and painful. At one point, Ronda tried to go for the Piper's Pit on Becky, but Charlotte hit a spear and tried pinning both women. She did the same thing with Natural Selection, where she hit them both at the same time, tried pinning them, and it was a really fast-paced, full of spots, really tightly told story. Towards the finish of the match, Becky and Ronda lead Charlotte out through an announce table, and they fought their way back into the ring. Ronda went for the Piper's Pit, but Becky countered, and it was over. That was just how it ended. Ronda goes for the Piper's Pit. They call that Becky's countering, and then it's a 1, 2, 3, and it's over. And I really like that, because far too often in a wrestling match there's this build to a crescendo where you're like, okay, it could be over now. It'll be over in the next couple of minutes. And all too often when they go down for that final 1, 2, 3, you know that they're going down for it. But I actually liked, I've heard people saying that it was a flat finish, and I understand where they're coming from. It came out of nowhere, but that for me just made it feel like that catch as can style. Everything can happen, anything can happen at any time. And I just love that Charlotte was out of the equation, Becky got that win, and it was just, I was really surprised, because at this point Seth had got his win, Kofi had got his win, and I was like, oh, Becky's not winning, is she? And I was actually convinced she wasn't going to. And as Charlotte was getting more and more offense in this, I was like, Charlotte's going to win. Charlotte's going to win. And it really helped me buy into it. So when Becky got this sudden win out of nowhere, it was like, oh, it's over. I just was really surprised, and I thought it was really effective. And after that, though, the commentators sold that Ronda's shoulders were up, and I like that too, because it leaves it open for a one-on-one match between them at some point, because Charlotte got taken out of the equation. Bye-bye, Charlotte. You have no more chances. You don't belong in this match. We took you out, and the result got decided between us two, and that's why they can have the one-on-one match in the future. And I just think that it was a great decision. I definitely think I know what dirt sheets are like, right? And I know what people are like. Everyone's talking about whether it was a botched finish or whether it was the planned finish. And I guess, you know, Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful, he says that it wasn't the planned finish, and I don't know. I really don't know what I think. I personally think it was probably the planned finish, and now it's just going to gain traction as the story that it was botched, and that's unfortunate, because you don't want people saying that the women botched the first ever main event, you know, and that's a shame. But I personally, it worked for me. I was sort of ready for the pay-per-view to be over anyway, so just that sudden end was like, oh wow. And Becky had a celebration, and it all went down really, really well. I gave this a 5 out of 6. It was better than I expected, really pulled off some surprises, and I love that each woman got a time to shine and a time to look good. Yep, like I said, that the result was Becky Lynch picking up both Raw and SmackDown Women's Championships, and in a 5 out of 6 match. And with that, it's time to start wrapping things up. Oh my god, I did it. I actually did it. I got to the end. I thought that I might actually die before I got to the end of this, but I managed it. I got through. It was a decent pay-per-view in a lot of regards. There was some fat that could have been trimmed. This didn't need to be as long of a show as it was. It wasn't as much of an ungodly long show as everyone made it sound like it was. Don't get me wrong, it was long, and by the time it ended, I was ready for it to be over. But I never felt like it went obnoxiously long. But there was definitely the United States Championship match. You could have just cut that out. I hate that. Again, I hate to be this guy, because everyone's gonna just think that I'm biased, but I think you could have got rid of the women's tag team match too, and nothing really would have been lost. You could have dropped that Elias segment, and that would have given a little bit more time to Roman and Drew for them to make their match a little bit better. Maybe would have given time to Balor and Lashley for them to have a little bit of a better match. Like I said, there was some trim, there was some fat that could have done with trimming, but all in all, I quite enjoyed this. I got all the moments that I wanted, and I really, really enjoyed that Bryan and Kofi match. It was my match of the night, the high point of the night, and it was just incredible. Right, I want to thank you all for listening, and I would love to know what you thought of WrestleMania 35. So if you want to tell me, leave a comment down below, and if you want to always stay up to date with my content, click subscribe and hit that notify bell next to it, and you'll never miss an episode of Wrestling in the Dark. Alright guys, I'm off, and you should have a good one.